this $83 million judgment against the presumed Republican nominee in Donald Trump. I think we could say he's the presumptive nominee is fair. It would be the biggest shock in I don't know, probably the biggest shock in political memory for me if Donald Trump weren't going to end up being the nominee at this point. And we've been telling you this now for a couple of weeks. But Jean Carroll went on with Rachel Maddow last night. Who isn't she getting paid something like $30 million a year to show up once a week? I mean, it's a great gig. It's
In all of media, Buck, there is a strong argument that Rachel Maddow has the best contract. I don't begrudge anybody who makes a lot of money because obviously MSNBC is making a lot of money. But yeah, the reports are that she makes $30 million a year to show up once a week to do that show.
it's astonishing. So anyway, something goals, hashtag goals.
Yes.
But here she is, Jean Carroll, when she's asked what she's going to do with Donald Trump's money, which he hasn't given her yet, but that's a whole other part of this. Like, what's the actual sum going to be? This is how the woman who claims she was sexually assaulted by Donald Trump. It was in the 80s, right? Or was it the 90s? The 90s, the 80s. It was like 30 years ago, whatever. Let's just 30 plus years ago. This is how she speaks about this verdict and this $83 million judgment. Play 10.
You've talked about using some of Trump's money that you're about to get to help shore up women's rights. Do you know what that might be, what that might look like?
Yes, Rachel. Yes.
Tell me.
I had such great ideas for all the good I'm going to do with this money. First thing, Rachel, you and I are going to go shopping. We're going to get completely new wardrobes, new shoes, motorcycle for Crowley, new fishing rod for Robbie. Rachel, what do you want? Penthouse? It's yours,
Nothing.
Rachel. Penthouse and France? You want France? You want to go fishing in France? No? Oh, all right, okay.
That's a joke.
All right, okay.
That's a joke.
Although if me fishing in France could do something for women's rights, I would take the hit. I would obviously take one for the team. All right, let me as if you need persuasion in that regard.
Now, Clay, I understand what the Democrats are going to say. They're going to say, "Oh, but she's laughing, she's joking." Let's all understand. She accused Donald Trump of forcible rape in the dressing room of a department store in New York City, which is a horrible, violent crime. Now, he wasn't even in the civil trial found guilty of that. I think it was sexual assault, but not actually rape, right? That's the distinction.
I believe that's correct. And I want to dive into that because I think it's significant. But
sometimes people will refer to a rape as sexual assault, or, it is a form of sexual assault. So these specificities or the specifics here are something that we should nail down. But my point is merely, Clay, if that happens to someone and it's so traumatic that they, first of all, would be traumatic. And second of all, that they would bring it forward 30 years later and take it into court. There's nothing funny about this. Right? I mean, if that had actually happened to a person, wouldn't you think the person would think there's some solemnity, that there's some hope that the justice system is punishing a person for doing something awful? It's not a big joke, is my point. But to her, it is a big joke, isn't it?
Well, I think this is devastating for anybody out there who's tried to hold her up as a true victim. I'm not. Look. I can't.
I don't believe her, so I just want to be clear. I don't believe that Donald Trump did to her what she says he did to her. I do not believe it.
I agree with you on that. And also, I believe that all of her actions have demonstrated that there is, I think, a preponderance of the evidence that he didn't do this. And if you were truly a victim, I don't think you would go on MSNBC and talk about the way you're going to celebrate your $83 million is to go shopping for new outfits and to take trips and to be just like laughing it up. I don't buy into this. And I mentioned this yesterday, Buck, but I think this is important in a big way. And I want to ask lawyers out there, 800-282-2882, because I'm going to put on my lawyer hat here for you for a minute, Buck. I don't understand the procedural posture of this case. Let's leave aside Jean Carroll laughing, yucking it up on television like she did. The procedural posture here is this. And see if you follow me here, Buck, because this may be a little bit complicated. I'm probably going to have to come back and keep talking about it. But in the first suit, Trump was accused of rape and sexual assault. Okay, simply put, rape obviously usually requires some, I'm being graphic here, but it's the legal distinction, right? Some form of penetration of a sexual nature. Sexual assault often is defined as touching somebody in an inappropriate way. Like you could grab
Groping without penetration is usually a distinction that would be made here in the law. Yeah.
Okay. So the jury in the first trial found that Trump did not rape her. They found that he committed sexual assault, and they found him to have to pay $5 million. I don't even understand. And again, it's a little bit complicated, so I want you guys to try to follow me as best you can. That trial did not happen until 2023. $5 million verdict, sexual assault, preponderance of the evidence, civil lawsuit. This is not a criminal case, civil lawsuit, which, by the way, they changed the statute of limitations for to allow her to bring this suit, which is even crazier, right? But then they found him guilty, liable for defamation based on comments, this second lawsuit that just happened that he made in 2019. I don't understand legally two things. One, how can Trump be responsible for defamation from comments he made in 2019 based on a jury verdict that didn't come down until 2023? They said he defamed her based on the jury verdict. Well, the jury verdict didn't happen for 4 years. Second part here, Buck, and this is complicated too. He did, when he said that she was lying, the jury in the case actually agreed with him partially because she said she was raped, and the jury didn't believe that. They believed she was sexually assaulted. They didn't believe he raped her. So I don't understand from a legal perspective how this is not defamation, how this is defamation, because even based on the trial that happened 4 years after these comments, they agreed that he didn't rape her, so his lying comment is true.
So I have a theory here. My non-lawyer theory, my political theory, which I think supersedes the law here. This is all just practice. It's repetition of flexing the muscle of anti-Trump lawfare here. It's just showing people that if you get a New York jury at this point in time, that you're going to put Trump up for anything, you're going to nail him. And this is what concerns me about this. We've been operating under this idea that the Alvin Bragg case is so weak and so flimsy that there must be some reality that comes into play at some point, right? The 30 whatever counts, it is 34 counts, I think, or 37 counts of forgery or something. I mean, whatever,
bookkeeping
right?
violation.
That every time they wrote down that this was a personal expense, not a campaign expense, they were committing a separate criminal act. It's insane. But maybe insanity is no longer something that we can rely on as the outer limit of what they're willing to do. Do you know what I mean? Maybe what this is showing us
think
is that the Alvin Bragg case is going to get a conviction, even as crazy as it is, because they're getting these E. Jean Carroll civil verdicts like it's nothing. So that's really concerning to me.
Yeah, on appeal, though, from a legal perspective, I don't see how this doesn't completely get tossed out. And this doesn't even consider the other thing, which is effectively what you're saying is Trump is not allowed to defend himself from accusations of sexual assault because that's defamation.
I also, so now is it, if you say that you don't believe someone, are we getting into defamation now? Do I have to accept someone's public narrative of events, or else they could sue me for defamation? I mean, unless she is not able to prove there's no proof of anything that she has claimed against Trump of any kind whatsoever. It's just her word. So now whoever a jury believes in a civil sense, the other person's guilty of defamation. I mean, if I say Keith Olbermann is the worst person to have ever worked in media, can he sue me for defamation? I don't know. I think that's an opinion.
What's even crazier, Buck, is it's retroactive defamation. Because again, remember, it would be you said like 20 things, and then you went to trial. They found out that you had defamed her. And then they were able to sue for the 20 things you said before they found out you defamed her. I just don't understand from a legal perspective how you can be held accountable for what you said in 2019 based on a verdict from 2023 that you didn't even know was ever going to happen. This case, again, there's got to be other lawyers out there that are also really kind of flummoxed
I'm
by
with you.
the entire process.
Insofar as I'm concerned about, remember, the whole thing, Kavanaugh wasn't a total success for the left, but it was successful insofar as it established a precedent of it's credible even if it's incredible in the sense of not believable. It's credible as long as it attacks our enemies. And this is now the standard we're going to use. That is what the left does. And now they took that same standard and applied it here. If they could have waived the criminal statute, but think about what that would do, right? You waive the criminal statute of limitations for these things. You're opening up a whole. Why have a statute of limitations at all? But I think what we can see now, Clay, is that first of all, this is what they'll do in these kinds of trials going forward. But also, the standard has been set whereby it doesn't matter what the evidence is. If it hurts your political opponent and you're on that jury, if it hurts the other side, do it. You know what I mean? It's actually a political outcome, not a legal outcome, that concerns me the most. Well, you want to talk about the specifics? Get some lawyers,
and I'm sure there's going to be some interesting questions. But again, to me, this is a super important case. The more I think about it, the more crazy it gets.
I mean, I would just say there's no one in this audience, right? There's no man in this audience right now who, if the standard of evidence is 30 years ago, some woman says you grabbed her somewhere, can't prove she was there, no witnesses, no physical evidence, no nothing, you would be incapable of proving that
correct.
You didn't do
you
this.
Didn't do it.
If you're in the same state,
negative.
if you live in the same city, guess what? You can't prove it. So
it's correct.
It's crazy. What they're doing is insane. But it's all about getting in trouble.